What if the people laughing at you tonight were unknowingly celebrating their own downfall? At a lavish merger party filled with champagne, power, and arrogance, mockery feels harmless until silence turns strategic. Tonight's story dives deep into a family blinded by status, a husband hiding dangerous secrets, and a woman everyone underestimated. While insults fly and egos soar, unseen moves are already in motion, documents signed, betrayals recorded, and leverage quietly secured. Every smile hides manipulation. Every toast masks deception. This isn't just about revenge, it's about patience, precision, and the moment power shifts without warning. Stay with this story as humiliation becomes fuel, loyalty is exposed as currency, and a celebration transforms into a public reckoning no one saw coming. Because sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one rewriting everyone's future. Crystal chandeliers flooded the ballroom with cold light, reflecting off champagne flutes and egos equally fragile. The merger party was meant to celebrate the brothers' rise, but it quickly became something else, a stage where cruelty wore tailored suits and smiles sharpened like knives. Every step across the marble floor drew quiet glances, measuring worth by silence instead of substance. Relatives gathered in tight circles, laughter spilling just loud enough to sting. Comments floated through the air, pretending to be jokes about being lucky to be invited or always so quiet. Each word landed with intention. The family had perfected the art of humiliation disguised as humor, and tonight they were eager to perform. No one noticed the tension in folded hands or the steady breath used to keep composure intact. Then came the husband, glass raised, voice smooth and practiced. A casual remark followed, something about appearances, about knowing one's place beside powerful people. Laughter erupted on cue. That sound cut deeper than any insult, because it came from someone who once promised loyalty. Behind that polished grin hid secrets, private accounts, late-night calls, and a hunger for approval that sold integrity piece by piece. Control had always been mistaken for confidence, and respect was replaced with ownership. A hand rested on the shoulder, not in support, but as a reminder of possession. The gesture spoke volumes. Stay quiet, stay small, don't embarrass. Years of subtle erasure culminated in that moment. Conversations continued around the room about deals and futures, all while dismissing the presence standing right beside them. No one suspected how carefully every word was being recorded in memory. The arrogance was almost impressive. Wealth had convinced them that no one without a loud voice could possibly matter. They mistook silence for weakness, patience for ignorance. Even as mocking toasts echoed through the hall, confidence settled in quietly, knowing humiliation was only the opening act. As applause rang out for the brothers' success, eyes never once considered the figure they overlooked. Yet beneath the calm exterior, resolve hardened. The laughter would not last. They laughed that night, unaware it would be the last time they ever did so comfortably. While crystal glasses clinked upstairs and speeches echoed about legacy and power, quieter work unfolded far from the ballroom's glow. No announcements marked it, no applause followed it, yet everything depended on those unseen moments. Doors closed softly, pens moved steadily, names that mattered were written where no one thought to look. Years of being underestimated had taught patience. Every careless conversation overheard, every document left unattended, every late-night phone call answered by the wrong device had built a private archive of truth. The husband believed secrecy was strength. In reality, it was sloppiness wrapped in confidence. Offshore accounts tied to shell companies, emails promising loyalty to competitors while pledging devotion at home, a signature forged once, then repeated out of habit, all of it quietly preserved. Alliances formed where the family never bothered to look. Legal advisors tired of being manipulated. Investors pushed aside after their usefulness expired. Respect, once denied, became currency. A single introduction led to another, each conversation sharpening leverage. No threats were made, none were needed. Facts carried more weight than anger ever could. The merger documents everyone celebrated had fine print deliberately ignored. Clauses buried beneath optimism and champagne required consent from a stakeholder no one considered relevant. That oversight wasn't accidental, it was arrogance. While speeches praised vision and dominance, approvals were delayed, revised, redirected. Every change followed the rules perfectly, leaving no fingerprints behind. The husband continued playing his role flawlessly. Public devotion, private betrayal. Late meetings disguised as strategy sessions. Promises whispered to others about futures that didn't include loyalty. What he never realized was how transparent ambition becomes when someone finally stops trying to please. Control had blinded him. He never imagined the quiet presence beside him understood every move better than he did. Power shifted without a single raised voice. The deal advanced, then stalled, then bent in a direction that made certain promises impossible to keep. Phone calls grew tense, smiles tightened, confusion crept in where certainty once lived. Still, no one suspected the truth. They were too busy celebrating themselves. Behind it all stood calm certainty, knowing the outcome was no longer in their hands. Every step had already been taken, every door quietly locked from the inside. By the time they realized someone else was guiding the deal, escape was no longer an option. The truth never arrived all at once. It surfaced in fragments, each one reopening wounds that had never fully healed. A bank statement folded too carefully, a phone turned face down a second too fast, a familiar name appearing in places it never should have. What once felt like intuition slowly hardened into certainty. The marriage everyone admired was built on transactions, not trust. Behind closed doors, loyalty had been traded like currency. Deals were made in private rooms where vows meant nothing and ambition ruled everything. Money moved quietly, redirected through accounts designed to stay invisible. Savings meant for a shared future were leveraged to impress the right people, to buy entry into circles that never truly accepted him. Love was never the goal, status was. Every discovery carried weight. Anger demanded release, but patience offered power. Instead of confrontation, observation took over. Dates, amounts, names, everything was remembered. Financial manipulation became clear in hindsight. Debts hidden, assets shifted, risks taken without consent. Control had always been the strategy, enforced through silence and subtle intimidation. Being underestimated made it easier for him, or so he thought. The family played their part without hesitation. They benefited from the deception and rewarded it with approval. Blind loyalty to image mattered more than truth. Concerns were dismissed, questions discouraged. Quiet compliance was expected. What none of them realized was how deeply betrayal sharpens focus. Pain, when contained, becomes precision. Late nights, once filled with doubt, transformed into planning. Every lie told so casually became leverage. Every insult endured turned into motivation. The husband continued performing confidence, mistaking restraint for weakness. That was his greatest miscalculation. He never imagined the silence beside him was strategic, not submissive. Patterns emerged. The same investors promised exclusivity were quietly pitched elsewhere. The same family members preaching unity were shielding misconduct. It wasn't just one betrayal, it was a system. Seeing it clearly changed everything. The goal was no longer understanding or forgiveness, it was accountability. No dramatic confrontations followed, no emotional pleas. Strength came from staying composed while the truth stacked higher and higher. The family's arrogance made them careless. They believed control was permanent. They believed silence meant surrender. Each assumption worked in favor of what was coming. What they never understood was that every betrayal had already been counted, documented, and repurposed into something far more dangerous than anger. By the time regret appeared, patience had already won. The room stilled the moment the final documents were called forward. What had begun as celebration shifted into something tighter, sharper. Executives leaned in. Lawyers exchanged looks. The brothers stood confident, rehearsed smile fixed in place, certain the merger was already sealed. That certainty didn't last long. Questions surfaced, unexpected ones. A pause stretched where applause was meant to land. Clauses were read aloud, slowly, carefully, each word slicing through assumptions the family had never bothered to examine. Consent requirements, financial disclosures, conflicts of interest. Faces that once glowed with pride now strained to keep composure. The husband was the first to falter. Color drained as familiar numbers appeared on the screen behind the podium. Accounts thought to be invisible were suddenly visible to everyone who mattered. Side agreements surfaced, linking him to competitors while sitting in that room pretending loyalty. A hand reached for a phone that no longer mattered. Control slipped in real time. Whispers turned frantic. The same relatives who mocked quiet presence days earlier now searched the room for answers, for someone to blame. Their power depended on a narrative that had just collapsed. Investors demanded explanations. Legal counsel requested private discussions that would never stay private again. The brothers' voice cracked when it became clear the merger couldn't proceed without resolving the very conflicts they had ignored. Every strategic move had already been anticipated. Every attempt to rush the process only exposed more damage. Silence filled the space where dominance once lived. The husband tried to speak, smooth words ready, practiced excuses lined up, but facts are immune to charm. Emails recited, transfers traced, promises contradicted by signatures he didn't remember signing because they were never meant to be found. Years of manipulation unraveled in minutes. The marriage he flaunted as proof of stability now stood as evidence of deceit. No announcement marked the shift in power. It happened quietly, unmistakably. Authority moved away from raised voices and into steady hands that never needed recognition. The party meant to crown winners had become a reckoning. Laughter was gone. So was certainty. As security escorted key figures into side rooms, understanding finally settled across the family's faces. The silence they once dismissed had carried weight all along. Strength didn't arrive loudly, it waited. And when the room emptied, the victory belonged to the one they never saw coming. If this story kept you on edge, imagine what silence is capable of when it finally speaks. Stories like this remind us that underestimation is often the most expensive mistake of all. If you enjoy intense family drama, hidden betrayals, and powerful twists where truth changes everything, make sure to like this video. It helps these stories reach more people. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another unforgettable story where patience becomes power and secrets never stay buried for long. Until next time, remember, some victories don't need applause.